Hello everyone. Hello everyone. First of all, welcome and thank you for joining the webinar. The title of the webinar is Migrating Magento 1.x to Magento 2.0. I am Shikha Badoria, the marketing consultant at Noah Technologies, having expertise in content and inbound marketing and in branding. Along with me, I have the presenter of the webinar, Shabir Chalawala, who is senior consultant in PHP. Shabir is having rich experience of more than 6+ years in PHP, and he has been working on Magento since last 4 years. Plus, he has also executed projects in both community and enterprise edition. I would like to tell you that the webinar will generally discuss that what is Magento 2, what are the features of Magento 2, what is there in Magento 2 which was not there in Magento 1, and what are the prerequisites of Magento 2 migration. And at the end of the webinar, we will address your questions. Meanwhile, you can post your questions on the right panel which is present on your screen. So let me begin with the webinar. I think you must be thinking that who is Noah and what do they know about Magento 2? What do they do and how they can help you? So to start with, first of all, see that who is Noah. Noah is one-stop solution company in the software industry with a clear aim to deliver excellence and whatever services they provide. The company comprises of more than 160 plus member team, and it is among 50 fastest growing startups in India according to Silicon India. The thought leaders of the company, or I can say the technocrats or the founders of the company, have authored and reviewed more than 7 books. According to CIO review, it is considered as 20 most promising IT companies in India. The company has served more than 90 plus projects in last 2 years to 40 plus clients, and the best part about Noah is that all the projects were delivered on time and within budget. The company worked on various projects like portal development, e-commerce, digital marketing, UX UI development, ERP, mobility, product engineering, cloud computing, and RIMS. Let me take you to the Noah worldwide customers. The customers of Noah are present all over the world, majorly in US, in places like California, Georgia, Florida, New York, Australia, Middle East, and Europe. The Magento services which are being provided at Noah are Magento theme development, Magento migration, Magento performance optimization, Magento support, Magento integration services, module development. There are various e-commerce products which are also being provided by Noah, and they are fashion store, restaurant, auto store, home decor store, and kids store. The other technology services being provided by Noah are enterprise portal development, ERP solution, custom application development, mobile application development, cloud hosting and management, remote infrastructure management services, that is also known as RIMS, UI UX design and development, portal performance and assessment tuning. The company has also partnered with Amazon Web Services, Liferay and EXO. Now let's see what are the features of Magento 2 and how it has created a buzz in the market. First of all, enhanced and advanced coding architecture is there in Magento 2. In PHP, PSR core standards have been followed, and to manage the external dependency, composers have been used. Magento 1's file rewriting rules have been replaced with Magento 2 dependency injection. And the very good thing about Magento 2 is improved XML based configuration. Next come the extensive APIs, which is there in Magento 2. Many new built-in APIs have been introduced in Magento 2 to create app or integration with CRM or ERP. And another thing is the use of service contract to hide business logic. Swagger generated document is also there in Magento 2. After coming of Magento 2, the upgradation of Magento has become quite easy because of various reasons. Better guidelines and ready-to-use tools have made the upgradation process much easier as compared to Magento 1. Next comes the enhanced checkout flow or the easier checkout process. Instead of having 5 steps checkout process of Magento 2, the checkout process have become quite easier because the steps have been reduced to 2. So I can say that the checkout process is more streamlined, which makes it quite quicker and easier for customer to go from cart to completed order. Next is the support full page caching out of the box. Magento 1 was not having full page cache out of the box in community version, while Magento 2 support all these. And this has basically improved the page load time. Next on the fantastic feature of Magento 2, that is less preprocessor based UI library. Magento 2 does not use Bootstrap. It uses less preprocessor and CSS in theme code. Less generally allows complete separation of front end and back end development. Less and CSS URL resolver also helps in enhancing performance, speed up page load, and make the system more friendly with search engine. Another thing is the improved indexing. Friends, indexing is the way Magento system transforms merchant data such as catalog data, prices, users, stores, etc. by creating index tables and then keeping them updated to boost query speed. So new default indexes have been introduced in Magento 2, which was not there in Magento 1. And another thing is the performance toolkit. To verify and optimize performance, one can test environment and test code changes by using Magento 2. So built-in performance testing toolkit provides ready-to-use profiles for load testing. So for load testing, 4 profiles have been provided. First one is the small profile, then comes medium profile, large profile, and extra large profile. So for all these profiles, you can do the test loading for various categories or parameters. So for the small profile, 20 customers load testing can be done, and it varies or ranges to 5,000. Same applies to the sample products. Around 800 sample products can be tested, and it can extend up to 8 lakh products for extra large profile. Next is the built-in support for varnish caching. To help reducing server load and to speed up the page load, Magento 2 is integrated with varnish caching. Now you all must be thinking that why you should migrate to Magento 2. So Magento 2 gives various reasons to think why one should migrate from Magento 1.x version to Magento 2. And they are, first of all comes the performance improvement. Because of the performance improvement, the load time has been reduced in Magento 2, so it gives you a big reason to migrate to Magento 2. Next comes the built-in support for varnish. Because of varnish cache, time to first byte has been reduced. Next reason is the better checkout. So we have already discussed that the checkout process has become quite easier in Magento 2 as the steps have been reduced only to 2 steps. The another thing or the advantage of Magento 2 is the advanced technology stack. So in advanced technology stack, the composers, less CSS, PSR4 standards have been used. Magento 2 has been moved from prototype-based framework to jQuery-based framework. And in Magento 2, it is much easier to post issues. Next is the revamped admin interface. Easy accessible menus are there in Magento 2, which was pretty much difficult to access in Magento 1. Adding products and its configuration is much easier in Magento 2. And the dynamic grid columns and options are there to create grid template. And the biggest reason or the biggest thing which makes you think to migrate to Magento 2 is that Magento will stop giving its support to Magento 1 after 2018. Yes, I'm absolutely right that Magento will stop giving its support to Magento 1 after 2018. So after 2018, security patches and bug fixes will not be addressed. So I think it's the right time to migrate to Magento 2. Now comes the biggest question that who should upgrade to Magento 2. So there are 3 categories who should think of upgrading their version to Magento 2. First comes the category of those merchants who want to keep their website up to date with latest Magento version. Next come those merchants who want to take benefit of added features of Magento 2. And the last but not the least comes those category who is having performance issues with the current Magento website. Now comes the most important part, that is migration process or the prerequisites of migration, that will be discussed by the presenter Mr. Shabir Chalawala. Shabir.
Thank you, Shikha. It was a very nice update on Magento 2. So, we gone through what Magento 2 is capable of and reason why should we migrate and who should migrate. Now let's understand what are the processes of Magento. So when we say migration process, so any migration process can be divided in 2 parts. One is migrating code and another is migrating database. Now when we talk about Magento, then again we can divide the migrating code into 3 sections. The first is migrating extensions, the extensions which were there in Magento 1.x either through Magento Connect or custom development. The second part is migrating themes. Migrating themes means Magento's front-end view, whichever was there, that need to be migrated in Magento 2. And migrating custom development. Now when we say migrating database is divided into 2 sections, migrating settings, the settings which were stored in Magento's system config, and migrating other information. Other information is like sales information, orders, invoices, catalog products, order categories, customers, promotional info, and CMS tag or static blocks information. So in the upcoming slide, we will see what are the prerequisites of Magento, how the migration tool will work, and we will also see benchmarking set by Magento for this migration process. Also, there are few things which are not migrated by Magento, so that includes media files. There are no tools available out of box for migrating media files. You need to put your media directories content onto the public directory content of Magento 2. Also, storefront designs that are CSS files, JS files, any static images cannot be migrated through these migration tools. If there is any change in the CMS page or static blocks for the layout that are stored in the database will also not be migrated through this migration process. Migrating ACL roles and permissions or admin users will also not be included in many migration toolkit. Now we have identified a workflow which can transform your Magento 1.x store into the Magento 2 store. So let's go through this process one by one and we understand how our Magento 1.x store can be transferred to Magento 2.x store. So the first step in the migration is do all the customizations, integrate extensions, do theming, and do some dry run on your test development. So once you are ready with your development environment and the development environment is stable enough, now it's time to move your data onto the Magento 2 store. So the next step will be migrating this data through data migration process. We will understand how to run this data migration tool in the upcoming slides. And also it is advisable to stop any admin activity because while migration process has already started and any admin activity will add overhead on your migration. So once data migration is completed, now it's time to stop the crons that are running on your Magento 1.x store. So it may be possible that you have any inventory integration or any other software which are integrated with Magento's inventory. So stopping this cron may stop the syncing with these tools and Magento. So it will not take much time for migrating Magento 1.x to Magento 2 once all this first and second step activity has been done. So once Magento 2 store is up, the syncing process will start again and all the data will be in sync. Sorry, that was a mistake from my part. Just a minute. Yep. So once you stop your cron jobs running, the next step that is required is to copy the media files, CSS or JS files which are on your Magento 1.x store that need to be moved onto the Magento 2 store. So now once these files and media files are copied, you need to run your indexes, flush the cache and check your Magento 2 store whether it is running properly. You have your store is having all the data which is required. So now if you find your Magento 2 store proper and stable, it's time to do incremental updates. So what is this incremental updates? So when we started the migration process in step 2 and after that we performed another 3 or 4 steps. So in between that there may be some customers registered or new order has been placed which are not integrated yet. So this incremental process will keep running and it will migrate all those data of the orders or customers onto the Magento 2. The incremental update script is a continuous script, so as soon as we find that all the data on the Magento 2 store is completely synced with the Magento 1.x store, now you can stop this incremental updates. Next step, check all the Magento 2 configuration and whether your site is running properly or not. You have all the up-to-date information on Magento 2. Then flush your cache, re-index the data, and now your site of Magento 2 is ready to run. So the next thing is put your Magento 1.x store on the maintenance mode and point your DNS settings onto the Magento 2 store. And your Magento 2 store is ready for production and customer will be able to access that URL. So we understood what are the steps for the migration process. Now let's go through in detail of the migration tools available in Magento. So let's first identify what are the prerequisites for this migration tool to run and how to configure those tools. So there are two tools available in Magento. One is data migration tool and another is code migration tool. So let's first understand and configure code migration tool. Code migration tool will be used to transfer your custom codes or extensions which are not available on Magento 2 marketplace yet to Magento 2 store. So you can download this code migration tool from the URL as shown in the slide. Once you download this tool, you need to apply Composer. Applying Composer will download all the dependencies which are required for code migration tool to run. So once your code migration tool has completed Composer download, now it's ready to use, but we also need to do few configurations. So let's check them one by one. You need to create one source directory which will contain all your custom codes of Magento 1.x store, and that need to be migrated. The source directory should not have any core files and must be in Magento's directory structure. So it should follow Magento 1.x framework standard. That is, it should have etc files, configurations, or model file if required, or helpers as per Magento 1.x coding standards. We also require one destination directory. Destination directory will be used by Magento 2 to place code that has been converted to the run of code migration tool. We also need one Magento 1.x directory which will contain all the core files of Magento 1.x, and also it will contain all the custom codes which are required for migration. We need one more directory, that is Magento 2's core directory, which will only have all the core files of Magento 2. You do not need to set up Magento 1.x or Magento 2.x directory. We just need code base for code migration tool to run. So that was how to configure the code migration tool. Now let's check what are the prerequisites for data migration tool. So for data migration tool, we will need one setup of Magento 2 store. Excuse us guys, just 1 second. I think we are facing some audio quality problem. Let's check that first. So what we will see is how to configure that data migration tool. So we need a setup of Magento 2 store which should not have any config cron file running yet. You also need to collect the database configuration, that is database connection pool for both Magento 1.x store and Magento 2.x store. Now please also get the version of your Magento 1.x and 2.x store. Your code migration, data migration tools version need to be matched with the Magento 2.x store. So that is required for the data migration tool to run. So to download the data migration tool, you need to apply commands as shown in screen. Data migration toolkit will be part of your Magento 2 store, so this command need to be applied inside the Magento 2 setup directly. So once you set up the data migration tool, you need to do few settings in the configuration file. So you need to rename the configuration file on the given path and put the database information of Magento 2.x. There is one more setting which also need to be added, that is encryption key. So encryption key you will get it from Magento 1.x local.xml file that will require to encrypt all the informations which are secret or which have been securely encrypted on Magento 1.x stores configurations, like the payment gateway informations or any merchant ID informations that are stored on Magento configuration. So we understood which are the prerequisites. Now let's go through the code migration one by one. So the first thing which was in the code migration was migrating extensions. So first check if the extension provider of your Magento 1.x store has already created Magento 2 version of the module or not. You can check in the marketplace. Magento 2 marketplace has already been live and there are lots of modules available already. So you can check if your extensions Magento 2 version is available or not. Now if there is any change in the database schema of the Magento 2 version of your module, that also need to be configured on the configuration file of the data migration tool. It will need to be mapped in the map.xml file. We will understand more about map.xml file when we learn to data migration tool. If the M2 version of your extension is not available, then you need to make custom development for that extension. We can use code migration toolkit for that custom development migration. Now code migration has been divided in the 4 steps. First, directory structure migration, then migrating layout files, migrating configuration file, and migrating business logic, that is PHP code. So as you can see in the screen, the first command that we apply is migrate module structure. It will create a module structure equivalent to Magento 2's module directory. Next thing will be migrating layout files. So layout files are used in the front end. So that will be migrated through this second command, which is migrate and convert layout. Next part is converting configuration to the Magento 2 equivalent configuration. The configuration is where Magento's scalability and flexibility is live. So it is most useful part of the Magento. So it will convert all the configuration files which are required by Magento 2 store. And the last step is to convert PHP code. So while converting PHP code, it will not change any business logic. It will just modify the syntax which were different on Magento 1.x and which is now completely different in Magento 2. So that was from code migration tool. After applying these commands, you will be able to generate a module of Magento 2. Then you need to test your module whether there is any conflict or any fix which is required on the migrated code. So the next part of the code migration is theme migration. So right now there are no tools available for the theme migration. Theming in Magento 2 is completely different than Magento 1, as Magento 2 is using less processor based framework with completely separate front-end and back-end development. So it will require a front-end developer to migrate theme to Magento 2. Now let's check on detail and how data migration tool work. So same as code migration tool, the data migration tool is also divided in three sections: migrating settings, migrating data, and migrating delta. So let's go through this section one by one. So first step is migrating setting. So as you can see on the screen, the command which is last one on the screen will be applied when you want to migrate settings, and it will convert all the configurations of Magento 1 from system configuration to Magento 2. So if your custom modules or extension has any configuration, so that also need to be mapped in the configuration file of the migration settings migration tool. So there is a setting.xml file which will have this code to apply all the additional configuration. So any changes which has been made on the core configuration of Magento 1.x store will automatically be migrated through this migrating setting command. Now next is migrating data. So if there is any custom column added or any change in the extension which has any additional column or change in data type, that also need to be mapped in this step. So there is a file named map.xml which we see earlier. So map.xml file will have all the information of mapping Magento 1.x stores table schema to Magento 2.x table schema. So if you need to ignore any column or any tables, you can put that information here. So once you configure all this information, you can run the command as shown on the screen. It will migrate all the data of Magento 1.x to Magento 2. So the third section of the data migration tool is migrating data. So as we seen earlier in the migration process, there are some incremental updates that also need to be migrated once our Magento 2 site is ready and there is any difference or inconsistency between data of the Magento 1.x store or Magento 2.x store. So this inconsistency is because when we stop the data migration toolkit and we do certain steps that stop from files and copying media files, in between that certain customers or orders has been created that also need to be migrated, and it will be done through this delta migration. So that was from the data migration tool. So we learn on how code migration toolkit work and how the data migration toolkit work. So Magento has set up certain benchmarking for this data migration toolkit. It has tested with 177k products, 355k orders, and 214k customers. And the benchmarking results were setting was migrated in around 10 minutes. The data migration time, it took around 9 hours. It migrated all the data except the URL rewrites information. And the site downtime was very less, and it was in few minutes. Just to change the DNS settings and re-indexing your Magento 2 store. You also need to warm up your cache on the Magento 2 store once your migration process complete. That will increase the page serving. That will increase the performance of your website by reducing page serving time. So that was from the code migration and data migration toolkit. Now we in Novat executed few migrations. The one was online grocery store and other was art gallery. So in our grocery store we had 6,000 products, 570 customers, and more than 1,000 orders, which we migrated from Magento 1 store to Magento 2 store. Other store which we migrated is art gallery, which has around 2,500 products to 50 customers, 42 categories, and more than 100 orders. So now I will again give it back to Shikha for further.
Hello everyone, and if you have any requirements related to the migration or the services or solutions which we have discussed earlier, you can always email us at marketing@noah.com. Now comes the time for addressing your questions. So we have collected many questions from all over the world, and among all the questions we have shortlisted the most important question. So we will address them one by one, and if in case we miss out any of a question, then you can always email us at marketing@noah.com. We will respond you via email. So let me take questions one by one. So Shabir, the first question is, my Magento store is in version 1.5. Should I migrate to Magento 2 or not?
That is very interesting question. So first you need to identify if your Magento 1.5 store is running with all expected performance and it is running properly and you are not facing any issue right now, then you can continue with your Magento 1.5 store. But as you can see, currently Magento has upgraded upload. So even if you check Magento 1.x latest version is 1.9.2. So we suggest let's go to the Magento, let's upgrade your store and take benefit of Magento's additional features on the latest version of Magento 2.
Next comes the question which many people are asking, and they are curious about that how much time does it take to migrate?
Okay. So migration time is varies upon store to store and it cannot be same for all the stores. It needs some information like how much extensions you have, what is your current version of Magento, and there are other parameters which decides how much time it will take to migrate your store to Magento 2. If we take example of our grocery store which we migrated from Magento 1.9 version to Magento 2, it has few modules and it took us around a month to migrate from Magento 1 to Magento 2.
Third question is, can migration steps be interchanged or not?
Okay. So there are certain steps which need to be migrated in the flow. For example, you cannot run data migration tool before code migration tool, because if you run data migration tool first, then all your data will be transferred. Now, if you integrate any modules or themes which were already there on your Magento 1.x store, then data of that custom module will not be migrated. So it's advisable first do the code migration, then do data migration, and follow all the steps which are required.
Next question is very interesting, that what if data migration tool stops before it completes migration?
Okay. So you do not need to worry about interruption or any stop by the migration toolkit. Magento will keep the history when it stopped last time, and it will start running the migration tool again from the same point where it stopped last. So there won't be any inconsistency in the migration toolkit or your data.
Next question is, while copying media from Magento 1 to Magento 2, do I have to modify any file name or path of the images or not?
Okay. No, you do not need to change in any path or name of the image. You will need to put your content from media directory of Magento 1.x store to public directory of Magento 2 store. So that will automatically connected to the data which has been migrated on Magento 2 store.
Thank you, Shabir, for addressing all the queries. So we have addressed almost all the important questions. And suppose we have missed your questions, then you can email us to us and we will reply you soon. Friends, I hope you have enjoyed our webinar, and thank you for joining us. And that's the end of the webinar. Thank you.